everyone! This is the beginning of a little series I like to call Will This Be the First Year I Complete Peachtober? Your guess is as good as mine, but this is the first time that I've made it through a full week of copying the prompts from Peachtober's list and creating full pictures from them. So if you're new to Peachtober, let me give you a bit of insight into it. So every year, this amazing artist called Furry Little Peach puts out a prompt list that is based on the idea of Inktober, which is draw a picture that matches the prompt or inspired by the prompt for every day of October. What I really love about Peachtober, however, is unlike Inktober where your medium is set for you, I mean it's in the name, you just have to do ink drawings for each day. With Peachtober, there's a lot more flexibility. It can be any medium you like and as colourful or finished or sketchy as you want to make it. And that's the kind of freedom that helps me get a bit more done than I did when I would do the Inktober. I just found it very limiting and it would kind of crush my creative expression a little. So yeah, Peachtober is the one. In saying all that, I have never completed a full month of Peachtober, but I'm really keen to do that this year because I think that would be awesome. So this is the picture I did on the 1st of October, the prompt being bee. And so I did a little twist on it, and instead of the bee being the main focus, we have a girl with her flowers, and she's quite obviously been stung on the cheek. I was really happy with how this one turned out, and so that kind of set me on a good pace for the rest of the week. I think that what I'm trying to achieve with this month's Peachtober is to just try different things that I haven't before, whether that's new brushes, new painting styles, new subject matter. I just want to use this opportunity to really stretch myself a bit more, and so far so good. Cosmos was the next prompt, which I did find a bit more challenging. However, I had been doodling my sketchbook and came up with this kind of goddess star moon type lady, and so I thought that that's the perfect starting point for Cosmos. And so with that thought process, this picture actually came together quite quickly. Like, I really liked the idea of having little stars down the bottom and having her sit on the clouds, and you have the cosmos behind, and it's all bright and dark at the same time. I saw a really moody picture on Pinterest, and so that's where I got the color scheme from. I'll show you the piece in a second. I can't find the name of the artist, but if you let me know, I can tag them. This was one that I definitely tried as something a bit different with, which was fun. For this one, I lost all the footage of me drawing it, so this is all you get, but this was a really cute one to do, sound a bit fun. I really had a fun time drawing this one. Starting with the grub kind of set the whole tone for the piece. She was such a freaky little, wormy little guy. And so then it made me think of chickens that I had growing up, and then it all just kind of came together. And it was really fun to study chickens a bit more. Like, I do like drawing them, but I have such a shorthand for them that I very rarely look at pictures and have more of a slow pace with drawing them instead of, just whatever the go-to usually is. The color scheme for this one was the hardest part because I wanted to have a background and I wanted the grass to be green, but it was difficult to find the right shades that complemented it all and didn't just make it all too bright and too overwhelming. So I went back and forth a lot on what to do with the background. There was a time that I kind of cut a lot of the space out, so it had kind of a white border around a lot of it, but I didn't like the look of that. It just looked even messier because there was too much going on. So I went for more darker, muddy colors, and that kind of helped a bit, but I don't know, I still find doing color theory and getting the right matches of color quite difficult. So it is something I'm trying to work on more, because it is frustrating to think you're doing the right thing and then you look at the piece and you're like, that's so overwhelming, there's way too much going on, the colors aren't really complementing each other or don't have a theme like I wanted them to. So yeah, that's just something that I'm actively trying to be more mindful of. I'm really happy with the fact that I'm still on target for these drawings. As I'm recording this, I'm in my, second week of Peachtober, and I'm still getting it done each day. There has been one day that I've had to do 2 drawings in one because it was my boyfriend's birthday, and so the whole day was work and then we were out for dinner, and so that kind of took me off my mark a little bit. But I'm really keen to get through the whole month and have a picture for every day and have built up a new set of skills through this and just have a lot of fun. I'd be curious if any of you guys are also doing Peachtober or Inktober, or if you've ever done a mermaid. That's another one that I would like to try. I'm a little nervous with that one because I wonder if drawing a mermaid every day is actually, it gets kind of boring. Or, no, I guess if you were thinking of like really different types of mermaids, it would keep it exciting. I think that's what I really like about Inktober or Peachtober, is the amount of different things you can do is quite good. Sprig was another one that was difficult. I started thinking maybe a landscape, and then I thought, it'd be nice to practice drawing the side profile, so I had a couple ideas for that, one of which being like someone holding her chin up, but in the end I went without the hand and just a lady looking up with a little sprig behind her ear. I also want to practice drawing different ethnicities. My obvious go-to is just a white girl, because that's me, so it's, I draw what I know. But I definitely want to diversify a lot more, and I found it quite interesting with painting this lady with a slightly darker skin tone, was working out how the light and shadow would fall when it's not just a light peachy color, and that was cool to spend more time looking at photo references. Day 6 was eye, and I knew I wanted to do a fisheye lens perspective, and it kind of just came to me that a pigeon would be great for that, because the way birds look at you with their side eye, it just fitted it so perfectly. I started with the city in the background, but I think that made it too cluttered. So in the end, I just went with just the bird and the sky, which I really liked how it turned out. It was very graphic design, which was different for me. Crater was another one that I thought I would struggle with, and so I was kind of thumbnailing just a crater, and so how can I make this interesting? How can I make this fun to draw? How can I make this not just like brown and, mud and dirt? And so I stretched out my sketch and then kind of played around with it, and then I started thinking of like, what if in the crater was a little town, or something, or like a little house, and it had filled with water, so it was kind of floating in the crater on like part of the asteroid or whatever had crashed into the ground. And so the more I thought about that sort of thing, the more this one actually was a really, really enjoyable one to do, because I was in the flow of it so quickly, and I literally sat down, started the sketch, and I didn't leave my tablet until the very end. Like, I could just blast through the whole thing, which isn't always how I work. I usually step away for a bit or take breaks. So it feels very satisfying when I just sit down and just belt it out, and I'm really happy with the end result. So I'm just still like finalizing the sketch and working out how much of the details I want to be putting in, and how big of a project I want to make this, because landscapes are always a bit of a hectic one for me, that it's not an easy thing for me to draw and paint, so I knew it was going to be a bit challenging. I'd watched a lot of tutorials from Loesch, and I really love how she does the lasso and clipping and filling in tools to block out her backgrounds, and I think it has a really cool clean effect instead of just kind of painting off the sketch. So that's what I did. I had the sketch in the background to refer to make sure I was kind of doing what I initially planned to do, but I kind of let the lassoing do all the work and make all the shapes and cut out the crater from the grass and all that sort of thing. I tried to keep to quite a limited colour palette as well, just to make my life a little easier. This is me with my hair drying in my t-shirt, because this was a late night little project for me, but I didn't want to stop, so I just powered through. And the more of this piece I kept putting together, the more I started thinking of those old retro graphic design type national park posters, if you know what I mean. You'll get more of an idea at the end if you're not too sure what I'm talking about at the moment. But it's just very blocky, it's very stripped back in detail and rendering, and that's what I wanted to do, because I knew I could easily over render, because that's what I always end up doing, and then the background looks gross and it's confusing what I'm meant to focus on, and it makes me hate the piece. So I really was trying to hold myself back from overdoing it on this. I tried to only have the base color and then whatever the shade color was going to be. And then on the mountains, I have the base color and then like what the highlights are. And that really helped with not over detailing it, because in my mind I was like, you can only put in the shadows, and if you shadow everything, then nothing's shadowed basically, and you won't like the end result. So I was trying my absolute best. I always love drawing subjects that create a little story in my mind, so I think that's also why I enjoy doing this one so much, because I love the idea of it. Like, I love the little house and being in the crater, and who lives there and what do they do and where is this place, like all that sort of aspect of creating a little scene and a little story is what I love so much about drawing. I tried to also reference a little house, because that's another thing that I always take for granted, like those sorts of objects that you draw if you start drawing as a child, like those things are like houses and I don't know, trees and things like that you are your early kind of subjects. It's easy to not research and reskill how to draw them. So if I kind of go off just the top of my head, there's not a lot of variety of buildings and houses that I have logged away. So I try to still go to a reference and pick something that wouldn't have been my go-to. Like, I would have done a little square house, I wouldn't have been an oblong, and I wouldn't have probably done the windows as those little slits, or had like the kind of brick foundation base, like all those little details. I can only get through looking at references, because things like this aren't, subjects I draw often, and they're not subjects that I go out of my way to expand my catalogue of. So yeah, a little reminder to myself and also anyone listening that referencing makes a huge difference, because oftentimes it's just those little details that then make the drawing so much more interesting to look at and so much more immersive, I guess. I'm really loving doing these clouds in this way, I find it really satisfying, and it creates a very dreamy, moody feeling to the sky. Lastly, I put some texture as an overlay that I then put the opacity down on, so that's what that kind of blotching look is. And I put a little smoke coming out of the house. I did that on the top layer so it didn't have that sepia colouring that the rest of the picture has. I wanted the smoke to pop out and stand out and kind of draw your eye down to the house. So that kind of worked out really a lot better than I was anticipating. I'm not gonna lie. This whole drawing, like each stage, I was like, oh, I had an idea, I tried it, and it's actually worked out quite well, and I like what it looks like. Shocking. I also looked at some of the old vintage pictures and got a reference on the colour on the mountains. I'd already used a really dark colour as the mountain because it's the object that's the most furthest away, so I usually have that as the darkest option. So I wasn't sure how to put some detail in the mountain. Initially I was going to go even darker and do shadowing, but I'm so glad I went and looked at some of the old vintage posters to see what they did, because I think that the orange on the mountains is so perfect and kind of makes the whole piece. Like, is it snow? Is it just the side of the mountain? It just creates more depth, and the pop of a different colour is just much more eye-capturing. I then wanted to frame the piece. Oh, ignore those clouds. I kind of adjust them in a minute. Yeah, there we go. I wanted to frame the piece with some dark objects as well after I'd gotten the mountains looking just how I like them. So I thought some foliage around the sides and the bottom of the picture would do that quite well. And so I again looked at some references for trees, just so that wasn't just the usual go-to for me. It was something a little different, and also it was something that I could see how shadow and light would work on as well. Finally, when looking at vintage posters, I noticed that they all have a kind of off-white border around the whole thing, and often some text. So that was the last little finishing touches I added on. Procreate, I haven't ever gotten any expansion packs for text, so the text I have is very boring. I tried to find something that was the most I don't know, like graphic-y and blocky to go with the vibe of the picture. I tried to mess around with it a little, but in the end, it wasn't the focus of the picture. I just wanted to add some text, so I left it as is, and I think it looks all good. And I add a little national park homes because I like the idea of living there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's been so satisfying getting 7 pictures just smashed out for Peachtober so far, and I'm excited to see what I come up with next, to be honest. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next week. Bye!